All right. Well, welcome the people in the Zoom audience as well as who's here in person. I'd like to call the meeting to order. There's one addition to the agenda that I know of. The sharing that David has become the new city planning for the city of Mesa. Not supposed to say that? No. Oh. Anyway, resigning from here. And we need to get the replacement. So we'll put that at the end of the business. So. Any other additions?
I realize that this is the first that doesn't have a pen.
Right.
A pen.
What?
Borrow one from the library.
Pen? There's one here on the table. The patch.
No, mine.
Privilege of the floor. Lady.
For those of you who don't know me, well, it's echoing.
Yeah, it is.
It may be Charlie's.
Maybe Charlie.
Try again. Wow, so what do I do?
I think
It's gone from back there.
it's Charlie.
Yeah, now, lady.
Testing.
It's better.
Better.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Lainey Wilmar, and I'm just going to face this way, I guess,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. I think good.
So I appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk about my topic. So I'll be able to briefly discuss it here and hopefully generate some thoughts for solutions to the general condition of Comfort Road, the dirt road section. Divided into two different pieces. The first one is the general condition of the road under health and safety. Oddly enough, the winter is the best time for Comfort Road, it seems. There's no dust, it's frozen, etc. There's no ridges that I know of. The rest of the year, it's quite a bit of a problem. In the summer and fall, so we're in summer now, number one, there are deep ridges in the road that are from the road eroding, I suppose. I don't know what the underlying causes are. All I know is that it looks like the road is disappearing in sections. This makes for completely unsafe driving conditions. Cars are driving down the middle of the road, so you have oncoming traffic in the day or night, completely unsafe. So that's number one. Number two, the excessive dust is a huge issue. The general condition of Comfort Road in the seasons other than winter is one of pretty extreme waves of dust. I don't mean little small amounts that are stirred up when, you know, a truck goes by or something like that. I'm talking about when it's dry out, which is often, waves of dust. And I've stood back and taken videos of this, watching it go from my road into the trees, into by the house, etc. So the only time this isn't happening is either when it's raining and for a few days following the rain, or immediately after the dust control, I don't know what you call it, the dust control stuff is put on the road. And so for a period of time after that, it's damped down. Now, I've been told that this substance that's put on the road is supposed to last the entire season, which is preposterous. It doesn't last anywhere near that length of time. So it's unbearable. We've had a couple of weeks straight before it rained the other day of really hot, dry weather where I'm driving behind a car. This is no exaggeration. And I can barely see the car in front of me. I have to stop at the bottom of the hill before driving up the hill to my house. So that's that part. Not only is this a safety issue while driving, but it's a health hazard. So it's impossible to avoid breathing in the dust when you're taking a walk. And I'm a big walker. I try to walk 2 to 3 miles a day. I try to do that around where I live, but that's gotten to be impossible. Most of the reason is because as soon as you drive anywhere over, I've calculated 17 miles an hour, it's stirring up the dust. And the posted speed is 25, which still makes it impossible when it's dry conditions. That speed limit is not adhered to generally, and it's actually too high for the dust control. I've heard people that were adverse to having anything done to the road talk about it being a shortcut to somewhere else. The reality, it's not really a shortcut to anywhere else. It's people that are driving on the road basically live further down the road, and they may or may not know how much dust is being stirred up.
Lady, could you be succinct, because we,
Yeah. Okay. How much time do I have? I'm trying to be.
3 minutes is what's typically allowed. I give you a little extra time, but not a lot of it.
Okay. Last topic under safety and so on. Underneath that is financial burden to homeowners. I personally had to hire window washers, screen washers. They all are saying, what's on the windows? Had to buy air purifiers for inside to catch the dust that's coming through the windows, etc. The spring is so dangerous when it's soft and muddy. Literally sliding down the hill to get to the paved part of the road. It's extremely dangerous. I've had a friend drive over, fell into the ditch area, had to call a tow truck to be pulled out of the road at their expense. I've been told by the superintendent that the dust control substance will help. I'm not sure, stiffen up the road, I think is the term I used, and also he's trying to keep the water off the road. So beside that topic, the ability to enjoy my home is completely compromised. I specifically chose to live out here in the country for the obvious reasons. And I contacted the highway department and spoke to the supervisor at that time, which was a long time ago before the current superintendent. And I was told that the road was very well maintained. So, it's impossible to use my decks that were recently redone. The dust is so dusty you can't sit out there at all. Trying to eat out there is impossible. So what I'm wondering here, I was told I couldn't put this on the agenda because it wasn't, because the Danby supervisor, Joe, said the highway superintendent is not under the direction of the planning board as he's elected. Therefore, my request was to be a privilege of the floor with a little extra time. However, the planning board actually sets the budget for the highway department, is how I understand it. So in essence, these issues do fall under the planning board's direction.
Town board.
What?
Town board.
Town board. Right, I misspoke. I'm not suggesting in any way that the current superintendent, highway superintendent, is not doing a responsible job in Danby generally with the budget he has. I have no idea what's on his plate. I assume it's a lot. What I am suggesting that his budget needs to be increased to take care of much needed additional maintenance on this road. It's time for Comfort Road to come to the top of the list. I've been here 19 long years, and somehow Comfort Road is skipped over. What seems obvious, seeing that I'm a numbers person, is that if there's not enough in his budget, other funds need to be diverted from other line items to perhaps increase his budget. At a minimum, increasing the times that the road, that the grading is corrected and the potholes filled and the dust control put on. If additional time was, if these things were done more frequently, that would help initially. That would be a first step in my world. I'm wondering what tar and gravel, why that's not possible, like Leeb Road. Apparently there was money in the budget to do that for Leeb, and I don't know what the difference would be. At some point, if these items aren't taken care of, someone's going to get hurt, and Danby's going to have to find the funds when someone sues them. It just seems like smart money spent. So keep in mind that there are 22 homes. There's probably at least 44 people living here, needing to drive to work and to live their lives. And I've been all over Tompkins County on multiple roads. It seems like Comfort is one of the worst. Thank you.
Keith is here by Zoom.
What's that? That's great.
Highway Superintendent.
Okay.
You want to say anything about this, Keith?
Let's sit down.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. So yeah, I've spoke with Laney on numerous occasions, and we are trying more things on dust as far as like sodium chloride. This you haven't seen on your road yet. I would like to add that, but this year off the get-go, we did have a truck breakdown, so we didn't even start dust control until like a couple of weeks ago when things got really dry. However, when things dry out really bad, we can't grade roads. It's now we go ahead and we make a dust bomb, but these roads, we have to do this with all of our dirt roads. It's not just Comfort Road. It's unfortunate, but yeah, they rut up. As far as from the plow cleanup and stuff, it's unfortunate, but it takes a little bit to get out there in the spring. It's very early in the year yet, and I think you'll see a big improvement this year as far as dust and stuff. It's just it takes a little time to get going. We've had some really dry months in the past. We've had equipment breakdowns, and we're a little bit shy on hands right now, but I don't know what else I can tell you except for everything that I've told you in your emails, and I've addressed it to you the best I can. And I don't know if you have any more questions for me per se. I don't know. I guess I'm done with that, but
I don't want to back and forth.
Oh, I can't say it.
yeah.
I forgot to say one sentence.
I guess we'll just add the one sentence.
What's that?
I guess we'll just add the one sentence.
One sentence is that I'm paying the same tax rate as everyone who's living on a paved road is paying. And somehow I'm not able to enjoy the same amenities that everyone else is. That's a concern to me.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Ted has his hand up. Ted?
There we go. Thank you. I'd like to thank the town board for being so liberal with time. The last speaker got just under 10 minutes. That's before Keith started. I hope I will get the same courtesy because I have a bunch of things to bring up. First of all, I think Laney is right on the mark. There are some obvious problems with Comfort Road. The dust is a feature of dirt roads, and I'm not I'm agreeing with Laney, but I will point out that our former supervisor once said that, gee, no problem. If you don't like dirt roads, we can turn them into paved roads, but you're going to have to pay for it. It's sort of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying when you move into a dirt road, you kind of you have to know what to expect. That said, I think this dirt road is pretty darn bad. I've been told in the past that it was never constructed properly in the first place, which drainage is a problem. I know that drainage is a problem because well, I won't go into personal problems, but Keith, don't forget the corner of Comfort and Leave. You have a problem there of your own making, or at least of the highway department's own making. And I wish something could be done in Comfort, and I'd be glad to see the speed limit lowered even more, because I watch people coming down the hill that Laney referred to, and they are not anywhere close to the speed limit. That is above it. They are way above it. A couple other items. I saw you have some correspondence regarding the Hornbrook Road proposal, and I'd like to repeat in a few words what I said at previous meeting. You can't make your decision based on who is going to be doing this, either in a positive way or negative. I don't see anything wrong with anybody making use of a little farming area there. There's nothing wrong with who they are. On the flip side, just because they have a very good support from the county and funding to help make this happen, shouldn't be a reason to push it forward. The decision has to be made on what you intended with the zoning in that neighborhood in the first place, and nothing else. It's interesting that Dan Klein's report mentions the internet, because as it happens, I was reading the report of what the legislature's been up to lately. Dan's detail on what happened with the broadband proposal is interesting, but I had a somewhat different take. Actually, a nuance. It agrees, but it's a nuance on what happened. Basically, the question is whether to try and have municipal owned systems. I happen to have a feeling that I would like to see that happen in a perfect world, but this isn't a perfect world. The handling of internet issues by municipalities, Danby included, has been politicized. And I don't believe that municipalities, Danby included, could be trusted to do this in a way that's going to work right. I also wouldn't trust big companies like Spectrum to do it right, because they're too much out for profit. I think we should be aiming at local companies who will keep costs low and are really responsible to their local customers. So that's just a thought about it. And finally, I read with some interest Pat's proposal. I believe it was Pat's proposal about a committee to help guide the town board in its selection of a clerk, were it to be appointed. I don't think it should be appointed, but we're talking about her proposal. And it's all reasonable, but one thing stood out like a red flag, a sore thumb. And that was, there's a proposal for a 6-member committee. 4 of the 6 are under the thumb of the town board. That's what's known as a political maneuver, where the town board selects people or has some control over the people on the committee and tries to use it as an excuse for an independent committee. If you are talking about an employee in town hall and the town bookkeeper, they are beholden to the town board, which is the whole issue of appointing versus electing. A town board member out and out. I forget what the 4th one is. Let's just have a look here. Staff member, one town resident chosen by the town board. You're not going to pick somebody who isn't going to reflect your opinions. And that leaves us the only people who are not controlled by the town board, someone basically put forward by the Tompkins County clerk. And well, there are 2 or 3 previous town clerks here. And once again, that's sort of independent, but also sort of under town board. That's not the kind of committee I would want to see. I would, previous clerks is the best part of it because they know the job. The rest of it is you need an independent body. And with that, I would like to say thank you. CIC, not CIC, conservation easements. I noticed that your text in there pretty closely follows, as Joel explained last meeting, pretty closely follows the text of what was passed by the state legislature. And as such, I think that's just fine. What does trouble me about it, though, is statements during town board meetings, which says that those are the rules, but we're going to implement them in such a way as to make the terms rather different than what was intended in the first place. I do believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, that I heard someone say that, well, of course, at 15 to 29 years, of course, we're not going to accept anything less than 29 years. Come on, guys, you're missing the point here. Other implementations of this law in the other town that really implemented, when it went right out, they did the 15 years. People, of course, went for the minimum because they didn't trust it. And then at 15 years, they all renewed. And I think that that's a big lesson here. What you're trying to do is to get people in there. Okay, if you didn't want to do a 5-year one because you didn't pass that part of it on, then you still have to allow the minimum amount so that people can do it for a reasonable time and not tie up their land forever without knowing what they're getting into. And thanks for being kind about time.
I hope we're not establishing a precedent here. Anyone else would go to? Sure. Yeah, please, Mike.
Hi, brief comments on 2 items.
Tell us who you were.
Kevin Feeney.
Okay.
So
You
Gunnerman
look
Road.
different when you're not on Zoom. Yeah.
I went sailing and I came back looking like a pirate. So one is on the noise ordinance issue. I was pleased to be invited to participate in the working group and met good people who have good intentions and have been working on this hard for a while. I'm glad to work on the problem. There are apparently really are some serious problems. Not as many as I had thought that there would be, but
Is that mic on or just you're using?
it doesn't sound like, oh, there we go. I just need to be a little closer or a little shorter.
Yeah.
So I scrunch down.
If you loosen the
Oh, yeah.
knob, you can break the whole.
I used to be an AV guy. I used to know about this stuff. So, like I said, people working on a problem that is real. I'm a little concerned that basically what's going on is a bit of what the military calls target fixation in military bombing or strafing or whatever, where you're aiming at a target, you really want to do something to that target, you stop paying attention to all the ancillary stuff, and sometimes you're too low or too fast and bad things happen. And that's maybe kind of what we're headed for, and a lot of people have expressed concerns about that. A noise ordinance is an easy handle on what have been the historical problems. It would be a quick fix, okay, slap it with that, whack it with a sledgehammer. But the problem is it's kind of a broad sledgehammer and it lends itself a bit to, potentially mission creep and other things happening that were not originally intended. H.L. Mencken once said that to every complicated and difficult problem, there's an easy solution. The problem is it's the wrong one. And I think that an ordinance may be the issue here. Remember, most of the town does not want this. As far as the clerk disagreement and the desire to appoint a clerk, my feeling is that the duty of the clerk is to the townspeople, not primarily to the board. It's an officer of the town who is serving the townspeople. And, I'm not sure all of the roots of the disagreements that you folks seem to be having, but centralizing and consolidating power and taking it away from people via the vote is never a good thing. So I disagree with that. Appointing a compliant controlled clerk doesn't serve the interests of the town people, in my opinion. Thank you.
Anyone else? I'm not seeing anyone, so let's move on. There were several emails received in support of Cuba International's Puerto Rico for the People project, which will link to the agenda if anybody wants to take a look at them. Are there any announcements?
I don't know what we just said.
I asked
Are there any what?
Are there any announcements?
Oh. Hmm. Can't think of any.
Okay. Dan Klein, he can't be here, but he did submit his report on paper, and that too would link the agenda if anybody wants to take a look at it. Keith, did you want to say anything as the highway superintendent? He's still there. There he is. Now we can see you, but we still can't hear you.
There we
you
go. I'm here. So, yeah, I wanted to run by the board with everybody tonight. We have a couple of guys that are out right now on disability, unfortunately. As you all, most of you know, I think when I came into this, we had lost one of our employees to another municipality. So we were already down at one person when I came in. And now we have two people out that are on disability, that it's pretty serious issues, and not to mention that two of the other guys are up for retirement as well. I just wanted to run by and let
For the winter season, or
I think it would probably be a good idea so we could get him through his plowing, all the, whether or not you hire somebody with the experience that already has the experience, or if he needs a lot of training, it would be ideal for now. I think it would probably be a good idea to get it out there in advertising, see what comes in, applications and resumes, and just go from there. But more experience is always better. We'll just have to see what we get, but if we don't get much experience, yeah, it would be sooner the better. But
well, it'd be a good time to test the waters, and you've got with
yeah.
with a new contract, you're dealing with $24 instead of 18, so that might help
It's a little more appealing, sure. That's right. I think it's a lot more appealing, and actually, I've had a few people ask me, so I think we're in good shape with that. I think we're where we need to be. So
I checked it out. The starting pay is $22.40 an hour.
$22.40. Okay.
40.
22.44, yeah. Sounds like go for it.
Yep. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
What about the minutes?
Didn't get them till the last minute. At least the absent was changed on most of them that I saw to abstain.
Okay.
And the one missing half the sentence, at least now it is a full sentence. But there were some other things that Leslie had mentioned that we didn't get a chance to talk about, and I think those are worthwhile putting in there.
Those, she unfortunately evidently couldn't get an internet connection, but she couldn't be here otherwise.
Right.
Are there meetings for which we that is not the case, that we could get off the table, or?
I don't have her email in front of me, and I don't remember which one, so I would say no.
I have her email. I think that if we can at least put this off in this meeting till later, and if there's time to discuss it, if we can do everything else and see, and otherwise wait.
Okay.
And maybe have a meeting where we can just do minutes.
Mhm.
So it looks like we also might have to do the other
Warrant.
warrant,
You have to do that for the warrant anyway.
right?
So we can do them both at the same time. would be
Right.
useful.
Okay, sounds like a plan. We do have one warrant ready to go, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
the highway.
Highway and water.
Mhm.
The water, I didn't see an abstract for. I saw the vouchers, but there's no abstract. So we can't approve that without the abstract.
So what were the
I do
abstracts?
have an abstract that I threw together at 5 o'clock. There's 4 vouchers on it. So if you want me to pull it up, I'm happy to have you look at it in real time.
Why don't we do that? 'Cause
I
it's
think,
done
yeah, let's
before.
do that. It's only 4, we can.
So if you could screen share, that'd be good.
Yep, I will do that right now. Let me get to it. Here it is.
In the meantime, I move that we approve vouchers 119 to 133 for the highway for a total of $40,676.05.
Second. Any discussion? Well, then we're ready for a vote now. We can take a moment to do that, Janice.
Okay, Connors is absent. Hunter,
Yes.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes,
and Gagnon.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then I have the water district here. Are you looking at the water district fund? I can make it bigger.
Yeah.
How's that? I saw, Pat, in your email that the ink cartridge included tax, so I removed the tax, which is why it's now $48.99. For the tax and this, for the ink and the stamps. And if you'd like, I can pull up that voucher as well.
I think we've seen the voucher, right?
no, this is the abstract. I've seen the
We've
vouchers.
seen the voucher.
I've gone through the
Right,
vouchers.
right. So I mean, you don't really need to see the voucher on which that was an issue. In fact, it was you who caught it.
Mhm.
So does it look correct now? It has everything on it that I expected.
Yep.
I'm just checking the number. Numbers are correct too. Yeah. So I move that we approve the water district abstract for vouchers. What are they? 16 to 19?
Yep.
In the amount of $705.19.
Yep.
Second. Comment? Okay, Janice?
Yes, Hunter,
Yeah. Yes.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes,
Gagnon.
Yeah. And we still don't have general, right?
nothing.
No, I do not have the general.
The casualty of Lyme disease. Janice's daughter has.
Oh, dear.
Okay, moving on to who's speaking for the noise group? That you, Steve?
Well, Catherine and me, I think.
Okay.
So actually, I mean, Kevin mentioned, I think it was a productive meeting. I think it was really helpful there were 5 members of the community there.
Mhm.
And it was very helpful to hear what people had to say. Speaking for myself, I feel like I have a much better understanding of the concerns that a lot of people have. So it definitely changed my way maybe of thinking about what is needed. And I would agree actually with what Kevin mentioned in his comments, that we may be sort of going at this with sort of too broad a brush. I think we were able to do a good job of sort of separating out what's needed from what is maybe a concern or an irritant for a lot of people. So we're scheduled to meet again next Monday and sort of continue the conversation. But I think it was actually really productive.
I so agree. It was a really interesting and good meeting. There were ideas all around, everybody spoke. It was very helpful and encouraging because we all heard each other, and it was great. It was a terrific meeting. Steve had a good plan for how to get it going and managed to keep us on that track. It was great. I think we were waiting to move forward with another meeting. Is a really good plan.
Who else was there besides Kevin?
Besides Kevin?
Yeah.
Rogan Moore was there. Peter Moore was there.
Rich Curtis.
Rich Curtis and Steve Thielen. And then ourselves.
Yeah.
And also Warren Cross.
Yeah, Warren.
Sounds like a terrific group.
Yep.
The group meeting again next week.
Mhm.
I do want to note that I had a meeting with Warren and the sheriff. Again, I heard from the state police that they do not enforce local ordinances. From the sheriff's office, they do. Their preference is not to do something on a basis where they automatically arrest somebody. They would rather be able to have some opportunity to come out and talk to people. It's sometimes useful to have a backup with an ordinance, and from the sheriff's perspective is typically ordinance, not a law. From the state, when I talked to the state, I asked explicitly in email if they would enforce a local law. The response was they don't support a local ordinance, so they were treating local things as ordinances, not laws. And the sheriff said, from his perspective, there's almost no difference from it. He did say that.
That's what Guy said too, but
He did say that there's a problem if there's different municipalities that have very, very different laws. That mean when they attempt to come out, they have to understand all of them. It would be helpful if there was some coordination among those so that they do not have to remember dramatically different things. There are some things that were mentioned that are typically done, particularly for businesses that are done primarily in zoning, which we do. It would probably be worth looking at in the committee more broadly in terms of when that would apply. Now, in particularly looking for agriculture, I did send an email to the agricultural department and I wanted some general information, but they only wanted response to a specific case. So they asked me for a specific case.
you're talking about state ag market.
State ag department. So it would be useful, anything that has to do with things that could be agricultural would need to go through that department anyhow. So it's useful to keep them in the loop of whatever is being worked on. And the sheriff was very positive and very helpful. And I met with the sheriff along with,
They actually met with.
I met with the sheriff along with two other people.
Sounds like Pat ought to be at your meeting.
What?
Sounds like Pat should be at the meeting too.
Oh,
Sure.
well, that's it.
It's scheduled for Monday, 6 to 8. I mean, you're welcome to join us if you'd like.
The three board members.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a good point.
But we
Um,
can have, when she, Warren was with Pat at they both were there for that discussion.
Mhm.
So, and it's not unlike some of the things we already talked about at that meeting. We all talked about not wanting to have, nobody wants to have anybody coming running to arrest them. And the really strong reaction we had from Rich Curtis was that they don't want to do it either. And that's not that wasn't anything that was, there seemed to be no interest in
Doing that.
anything like that.
Mhm.
So I just don't, I'm not totally sure I understand exactly the idea of ordinance versus law, but if it sounds like if we had the word ordinance instead of law, if we were to do this, and nobody's in a hurry for this, that might mean that the sheriff department could come and talk, and that's all we had. I mean, it's not at anything that, we don't want anybody coming up to people and saying, you're bad, and then we're gonna
My
arrest you,
understanding,
we're gonna find
and
it.
David could perhaps speak to this, that Guy's advice is that laws are better. The ordinances are practically an obsolete mechanism. You know, and do you remember, David, why that was the case?
Don't want to totally butcher it, but I believe it's something along the lines of which is derived from common law and which is derived from a specific authority granted to states and to towns in the Constitution, and where the authority is derived from and how strong that is. I'm not sure it really matters a lot in this case.
While you're standing there, this question about ag market and zoning, do you have any like thoughts to?
Could you say a little more about what the question is?
Yeah, Pat said that.
When I sent to the, I sent an email to Ag and Markets, and I said that there's an issue and when does it apply? And I gave a specific example of what we have here with the drying stuff. And when I got back from somebody who was Ag and Markets specifically dealing with that and wanting more details about the incident, did not want to do a broad-based thing. So we need to keep it in, somehow get something more broad-based information from there. But long-term, and we have.
Yeah, right.
That's
So
something quick
they don't
we
like
need
to do
think.
they don't, but so it sounds like what the question is how far can the town go in restricting noise from agricultural operations?
Right.
And yeah, they are gonna
They kind of cage
want to consider, if you adopt something, then they'll tell you if they think it's overly restrictive.
Right.
And if you prosecute someone and they think it's unfair, they'll defend that person. But it's hard to get a really good read on how much you can do. One of the things that complicates it is that all of our zones, I think all of our zones, have parcels that are in county ag districts and parcels that are out of county ag districts. And the ag and markets protection only applies in an ag district, but we can't, unless we have different zones for parcels that are in an ag district and parcels that are out of an ag district, we can't apply definitions differently or act differently if two properties are in the same zone, but one's in the ag district and one's not. It's further complicated. I once thought that we should just have a zone for everything that's in the ag district, but almost everything, not almost everything, but I would be surprised if it wasn't more than a third of the town's parcels are in an ag district, sometimes for seemingly no reason at all. It would be a good thing long-term to clean up and get parcels out of the ag district that aren't in agricultural production. But it's a lot easier to put stuff in than it is to get it out.
which accounts for why a lot of stuff that's in is in.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we have seen, like with the hemp drying operation, that it is important to be vigilant about not putting in things that you really don't want in. Because that parcel was not in the ag district and applied to be in the ag district, and the town, I wouldn't say fought it, but gave negative feedback about that potential choice by the county, and the county listened and didn't put it in yet.
Yeah, that answers what I was thinking. It's really complicated and trying to, trying to do something about noise with zoning. Now it sounds even more complicated since you just said that than before.
The one thing that would be useful, it would be useful to look at those at the ag districts and see if they couldn't be eliminated, because I'm sure there are some.
Reduced.
Yeah,
yeah.
some of them might be eliminated,
Yeah.
reduce some of them, yeah, right.
The only trouble is now that what we were just talking about, any law enforcement person, first of all, if the county, if they're not the same all throughout the county, and a sheriff is called.
No, I didn't say that they have to be identical. I said it's difficult if they're very dramatically different, so it'd be helpful if we pay attention to that. I
Right,
didn't say they have to be the same.
I'm not refuting that. What I'm trying to, I would like to finish saying what I'm saying is that it would be hard on anybody who was called. And then while we were talking about it, even thought about the people who are not residents who happen to be here. And if they live in another town somewhere else, and the thing that they're doing isn't against an ordinance. I mean, what we're talking about is a really difficult thing for anybody who comes to be called for a noise. It's more complicated. It's seeming more complicated, and I may be wrong, but that's just an opinion and a thought.
I mean, for ag, the simple answer is to just exempt ag from the noise law, and then you won't get in trouble with ag and markets, although.
But that,
And that's where we came up with the hemp, was that it wasn't
Yes,
an
right.
ag
Right.
activity. Although if they were growing the hemp on site, it
Would be,
would
would
have
have
been,
been.
there would have
Right.
been less of it, but
well, that's what I mean about if it's a house. I mean, it sounds to me like you're saying my neighbor could be an ag and I might not be, and
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
it's
may be
entirely
making-
possible. Yeah.
and I could be cutting trees down because I think I'm farming my trees and I'm not in an ag district. You know, what I'm saying is, I
Yeah.
think this is pretty complicated.
Yeah, and we also have, and it's been mentioned, we also have the right to engage in agricultural activity law that we adopted specifically to cover the people who are not in the ag district.
Yeah.
But that make everybody know that agriculture is something to expect in a rural community like Danby.
Right,
And you can expect certain noises to be associated with that.
right.
So we don't want to make it hard for people to engage in agricultural
We
activity.
certainly don't.
But we also don't want to open ourselves up to the kind of abuse, as I see it, that we had with the hemp
Right,
plant
and-
facility.
Yeah, because that one that kind of thing fell under ag, but what if it were I think it were,
It didn't fall under ag.
they thought,
Yeah.
sorry,
We argued it did not. Because it
Right, we
was
argued
outdoor
that it
activity,
didn't. but one could say that because if they had been growing it there, they could have said it is.
It would have been a harder case.
But that, I mean, the same thing goes for a cidery who isn't growing their own apples, but is processing and having them.
Mhm.
Or a meadery where they bring in the honey, et cetera, from.
Yeah.
Now, what if they have a field in Danby that has the bees and they have the meadery in the core because that's where they want to have a business?
Right, and that is, I don't want to add any unnecessary confusion, but the state does consider their protection the state gives depends on whether or not the parcel where, whatever violation the town cites is whether or not that parcel is in or out of the ag district.
Yeah,
But in order to be, for example, to say something was produced on the farm, they have a very broad definition of what the farm is, which can include any land owned or leased by the farmer, which is usually a corporation, not a person. And that can be this county, the next county, et cetera. So, yeah, it is broad.
Yeah, in front.
Yeah.
It has been used by some as a mechanism for engaging in activity which otherwise not be allowed. I forget what town it was up in the north end of Lakes that had this issue with an event venue that was associated with a winery.
Mhm.
That was
Is it the,
attempted and run basically around the zoning.
yeah, the 1911 one, what is that called? I don't know, they made a bunch of hand sanitizer during COVID and
Yeah. Anyway, it's complicated. It's complicated.
Yeah, it's very complicated. So taking the time to think this out and not doing any, not rushing is
Yeah.
good advice.
So don't, so take your time, just like get it done before Steve leaves.
Now we're gonna have him consult. He thinks he's getting off the hook. but-
Yeah. You can Zoom from Istanbul.
A little bit of a time difference.
Yeah.
It might be in the middle of the night, but you could do it. I have really good coverage and nobody else is using it.
Anyway, I'll just say, sorry for adding more confusion and complications, but Steve, since he is leaving, I just publicly want to make sure that we make a big point of how much I appreciate what you've been able to do to bring us together.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, you quickly demonstrated your value to this board. It's really too bad to see you go.
Well, I'll be back. I hope.
There you go. Yes, we hope.
Next item, local law to implement state authorized property tax abatement for conservation properties. Guy drafted, and it was associated with the agenda, so I had a chance to take a look at it. This went I took it to the CAC, to get their feedback, because it doesn't look like what we were expecting. You may recall that when we embarked on the process of how we would implement locally this state authorization, we asked Guy for guidance as to what kind of flexibility we had to in the implementation. And I'm not the only one who got the impression that we had some flexibility that it turns out we didn't have. So we spent a lot of time on needless, well, perhaps not needlessly, because it does become useful in terms of providing some direction for implementation at the policy level, but not at the level of the local law that would enable it locally. So, when we decided that it was not being very productive trying to approach the school district about participating in the crafting of the local law, I asked Guy to write it up based on the guidelines that we had developed in CAC, and that we had taken to the town board, and we basically got the town board to say, okay, go ahead and do it. And then what he produced was not at all what I had indicated we wanted. And I had a long discussion with him about why he didn't do what we asked him to do. And basically the bottom line was that he said that we misinterpreted what he said at the time. He didn't mean to indicate that we had flexibility in the content of the local law. That had to closely follow the language of the state enabling legislation. The flexibility comes in the implementation, the policy, because the law it follows the state guidelines. The policy it's a discretionary act on the part of the town board deciding which properties, which landowners get to participate in this program. And there are, good reasons for setting criteria like size, the conservation value of the land that's, whether it's an important part of a view shed, whether there could be a number of different reasons why some properties might be appropriate and other properties not. And it would be a town board call based on recommendations from the CAC, which ones to accept the offer of, that I offer to participate. And it's additionally complicated by the fact that already existing easements could offer to participate or request to be included and thereby get a tax break. People who do not currently have a conservation easement but would like to be included would have to have a conservation easement agreement with us in order to participate. Part of this enabling legislation makes it possible for those conservation easements to be temporary Whereas, otherwise, all of our easements are permanent. So, again, we'd have to decide which and under what conditions, temporary easements could be included. And setting the criteria for that is a policy decision, not part of the enabling legislation. So, I say I brought this to the CAC to see what their feedback would be on it, because the range of opinions range from, well, if we can't do what we wanted to do the way we wanted to do it, we should go back to square one and go back to the legislature and get a different authorization. And that was kind of the initial response. But then after some conversation about the matter, I pointed out that we went down this road in the first place because it was the working group that was part of the planning group that was most concerned about providing tax relief to property owners who had mostly large properties for whom the values were inflating rapidly and the tax burden accordingly. And they were concerned that it was threatening to force them to sell when they didn't really want to. And we seized upon this framework because it had already existed in state law. We discovered that this approach had been taken elsewhere, that it could be used to serve our purposes. And when we had that discussion, before we got into the whole thing later on, the group was basically on board. The planning group was, and so was the town board. The idea that this framework would serve the purpose. It was only later, after we got the law basically approved at the state level, that we had a discussion about would we want to implement it exactly as it is or not, and how would we modify that? With the clarification from Guy that they're at the policy level we have some flexibility. The CAC came around to recommending that the town board pass the law the way Guy had drafted it, rather than do anything other than that, because it is consistent with what our overall objective was. So here it is, before the town board with the CAC recommendation, so the question is now what? I believe we should propose it as it's drafted, and go from there. Even though I recognize that it's going to be a bit of a can of worms, coming up with policy that says these are the criteria for participation. Inevitably, there's going to be contention over what are the criteria going to be. But we'll have to deal with it. If we're going to use this mechanism as our way of providing tax relief to the large landowners, then that comes with the territory.
Do you want to discuss any of the thoughts on the policy?
Well, I mean, we could do one of two things. We could make a motion to do something, and then we could talk about it, and we could talk about it and then make a motion.
If we do this, it's going to require a public hearing where people can speak up, and the board doesn't have to decide. Just because we say that we're considering it does not mean we are doing it. Because
No,
public
we're
hearing,
proposing to do it and we
Right.
get people to comment.
right?
Yep.
So I'm willing to propose that we do it, and so we have discussion.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, well then I move that we go ahead and schedule a public hearing on this local law proposal for, let's do it for the July, was it 19th?
I don't have a calendar.
You don't want to, we could put some notice in the newsletter.
Yes,
I think July 5th is soon.
Yes, that's.
So consequently, the second meeting in July would probably be better, which is in fact, the 19th. held a public hearing then too. So that's the motion to schedule a public hearing for the 19th of July. Now you want to talk any more about it? Or should we go ahead?
Can I ask a really naive question?
Sure.
What do we mean by exemption?
Oh. The exemption means that you don't have to pay the tax. And what's in the law, I don't know if you had a chance to review the draft, depending on whether you're,
How long?
depending on how long you're committed to you're exempt by a varied percentage. It starts at 50 and it goes up to 90, depending on the length of time of the easement.
So let's say, for instance,
And it's only the town tax.
it's only the town.
Yeah, there's the option. It's not obvious in the law. Well, I think Guy did add one thing saying, others can participate. The way the state legislation is crafted, school districts and other taxing entities can opt in, like the county. And it would be highly desirable for them to do so. And they have done so in other towns that have used this legislation. But that's not necessarily the case here because our director of assessment is not keen on it. And the school districts have been unresponsive. So all we can guarantee is that if we pass it, it would provide an exemption from town taxes to the extent that it's in the, what's implemented. So it's a help. It's not, as you know, the town tax is less than half of the school tax is the lion's share of the tax. And the town's share is even smaller because of the county being sort of lumped together, town and county.
What, offhand, what percentage is county and what percentage is town?
It's a little bit complicated because we apply sales tax. We have the option of using back up a little bit more. Sales tax revenue in the county is collected into two pots. The revenue that's generated within the city stays within the city. Outside of the city, sales tax is pooled and redistributed on the basis of population. But towns have the option of applying the sales tax revenue to reduce the county tax or using it against the town tax. We in Danby opt to apply the sales tax to a reduction in the county tax. Consequently, our town taxes are higher than they would be if we didn't do that. So that means that the county tax is a smaller portion of what people pay in Danby than it is in some of the other towns. It also means that the benefit for those participating would be higher because our taxes are higher than they would be if we took the sales tax. I guess maximum benefit for those who choose to participate, but it's still a whole lot less than it would be if the county did participate, and way less than it would be if the school district participated. The school tax is more than half.
Do you know, roughly speaking, what percentage of the average person's total tax is town?
That I don't know. I'm not sure even Laura can answer that question. Laura's here. Laura, do you know? Are you there?
I am so sorry. I just got back from the bathroom. I apologize. What was your question?
The question is, maybe David can answer it. The question is what percentage of a person's tax is town tax versus the other stuff, town, county and school?
Yeah, so I don't have the school, but I don't have it as a percentage, but as the dollars per thousand in Danby, the town, it's 6.053, blah, 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 blah. And the county is half that, 3.05. And then there's a assessment for your fire district. And then there would also be the school, but I don't have the school, but the school is more than all the others added together.
That's on the order of 60%.
But it sounds like the town is still pretty substantial then.
Yeah. I mean, $6 per thousand. If you have this program, you can call it that, will not be appealing to small landowners. Because for most of them, you know, it's a rare person that owns the land with nothing on it. And generally speaking, if it's a residence, you know, the value of the residence way exceeds the value of the land. Unless you're a large property owner. And only the land is eligible. This is it's relief for the tax on the land in order to encourage it not to be developed.
But when someone, let's say you have 50 acres of a house on,
Yeah,
do you have a specific value for the house versus?
yeah, because the assessment does that. They separate out the land from the house.
We don't do it. That's an assessment, the assessment office.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They used to tell you on your tax bill,
Yeah,
how much is the house, how much is the resident, how much is the land. They don't do that anymore, but they just still have the information. And in the implementation, I haven't talked to Jay about this, but you know, they'll probably do you know, sort of for tax purposes, you know, the house plus 2 acres would be excluded from the what gets the benefit.
well, and in the easement, some people have chosen to have the house plus more than 2, you know, because they want to have,
Yes,
yeah.
but
so
for the
then
purpose
you
of
can
the
only,
abatement,
right, I know,
yeah, because I mean,
So
we
it's
had a
flexible.
question about, you know, a residential and active use zone. But we have easements where the residential and active use zone is the entire property.
Yep.
Every promise is like that. That doesn't mean that there isn't some virtue, if you were participating in having protection on, you know, what a house plus 2 acres.
right? Yeah, so, yeah, because Eric's property is pretty big. And he has that easement just so that it won't be developed.
Right? Basically, I mean, he has all those things that you.
But he can do everything he wants on it as a
that you-
recreation,
All things that one normally does around it in a residential property.
without houses on it,
Yeah,
right? So there's flexibility in how what people want for an easement in the first place.
and the main thrust of our easements has been to reduce the development potential without and minimally restrict the landowner's ability to use the land in ways that you know aren't bad. All the traditional uses, basically. If you have something really special, and then we do have environmental protection zones, but from the get-go, we kind of favor sort of directing those people for the land trust, which is much better positioned to monitor and enforce, you know, extremely protective easements. And even the land trust, because I've been there, avoids trying to put on restrictions that the landowner would like, that they would have a hard time enforcing. Like, for instance, only allowing organic agriculture farm parcel.
But those things don't have anything to do with whether a person decides to have an easement. It depends what.
Well, it does. I mean, I remember when we were doing with Kate O'Neill, and she wanted to limit the agriculture on her parcel to only agriculture done organically. And we weren't willing basically to have an easement that's that restrictive, because when we, the town of Danby, are not in a good position to try to enforce it.
That's not what I'm saying. She still could have an easement. She just couldn't have that restriction on her easement.
Right.
So, yeah,
But there are people who would say, well, if I can't do it that way, then I won't do it at all.
right.
That's part of their motivation to do it.
That's up to them, right?
Exactly. Right. So, okay, so we're almost a little bit off topic. Shall, are we ready to go on it yet?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Now, Janice.
Connor's not here. Hunter,
Yes.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes,
Gagnon.
Yes. Make a note of it, July 19th. Public hearing. Wish list. I'm not sure how much time I'm gonna spend on it, but I did share with you a scheme for what I would like to do on the north side of this building for the entry. And I did this last year, but what's new is the drawing that Michael Short made gives you a rough idea of what it will look like when you're approaching from the parking lot. So instead of having the current ramp on one side, stairs on the other, kind of in between, you would have a ramp in the middle that everybody would use, and then a planter on either side. The planter strip on either side. And then when you get to the bottom to be a landing, you're still 20 inches above the parking lot and get down there if you reduce the slope of the ramp to the 1 in 12, that's ADA maximum, that's ADA maximum. So there will be a couple steps down if you were approaching from the parking lot. And I didn't put them in the middle because if you think about it, if you're in the middle, then if you're coming down the ramp in the wheelchair, you don't want the stairs to be at the bottom of the ramp. You want to rail it. So the stairs on either side. And then if you go off to the east, it's very much uphill from there to the road. By the time you get to the 2 parking spaces, you are at grade with almost a level straight shot. And Steve got it.
Oh, yeah. Who's gonna do it, yeah.
So then it makes sense that for the 2 parking spots, B, handicap spots, there's a legal minimum of 2 spots if you're gonna have a parking lot at all. And one should be van accessible. So putting the access space between the 2 parking spaces, it can be accessible, either one of those spaces can be accessible depending on when you drive in and back in. If you're having one of those vans with just charging the chair off the side. So this is one possibility. And in conjunction with that, I'd like to deal with this double door by making it into a single door. And having an actuator on it. That's not depicted. What's depicted is the current double doors. It might be possible, and Teresa said, well, don't really mention it because we don't know yet. I asked Teresa whether or not it's possible for the court to seek funding to improve accessibility to the court as part of their funds available to help out with some of this stuff. Whether they could tackle maybe the door, replacing the door and putting in an automatic opener on it, which will leave the balance of the project for us to think about. So anyway, that's one whole approach. The other whole approach, which we talked about last year, and then we basically backed away and said, well, let's think about this some more, was originally there were two possible spaces out front here off the semicircle around the War Memorial. There's room for 2 handicap spaces there. There used to be a step up to the concrete apron, and we made it at grade a number of years ago by basically filling it in there in the mine because it's all uphill anyway. And then if you came in the south door, and when the old door, we took one of the panels out and there was a glass substitute, which you could see in through. If you went in that door and then across the vestibule, you could come in the other door to the inside, which is why it has the glass panels there. Because you could stand, you would come at it next to the door, and you could open the door like that. If you come in that door, you can't do that because there's not enough space between the 2 doors to get next to it. You can come in. So it only worked if you came in one door and then went to the other door. So the only way the front would work would be if we took the inside door out and made it an opening rather than a door. Then that door could serve as a handicap accessible entry if we added an actuator and a door opener to it. So that's all an alternative way of dealing with it. And it has its appeal. I mean, it's probably a less expensive option than this one. On the other hand, something in me doesn't like having a separate entrance for handicap versus the main entrance for everybody else. A universal design that accommodates everybody, I think is a better solution. And then, the problem here is that this access currently isn't compliant. It wasn't constructed as specified when the building plans were developed. The reason being that the parking lot was supposed to be raised and it wasn't. And so when it came time to pour the concrete, put the ramp in, the contractor for the concrete basically made it come out at the level of the parking lot, which made the ramp too steep. So the ramp is too steep, and the platform at the top is also too steep. It's ramped all the way to the door, which means that if you stop at the top, unless you put your brakes on, you roll back. And can't. It doesn't work basically. It works if you've got assistance, but not if you're on your own.
I don't feel competent in this area. I'm not an architect. I don't know if this works. I don't know how much it costs to have how many designs drawn for us to look at. And
So I guess where I am is we wanted to know where it fits in our wish list. If the board felt that one approach or the other was the better way to go, then we could pursue further information about what it would cost to do. I think this is sufficiently fleshed out that I could probably get somebody to give me an idea of what it would cost. If we're talking about going from a double door to single door with an actuator, and that's one thing, and then the redesign of the area is another, versus this one.
well, I mean, the idea of doing it from here for financially is somewhat attractive, but I think that it's probably a bad idea because of if there are meetings going on and that's the only way to come in and out, and if somebody's going to court and they have to go all the way through everything this way, somehow that doesn't feel right to me, but and I think you're right there. If a person feels discriminated against because of you have to use the back entrance. I have one of those little signs at home that says hippies use the back. But anyway.
Ironically, when this addition was put on, that was the front door.
Yeah, well then that would have been right.
And I said at the time, once we make this change, this will be seen as the front door. Nobody believed me.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice to have that be the front. That's the way it is. A building like this, that's what looks right. So I don't know that to redesign the library or the inside to make it more logical.
That's another.
Right. I mean, we had that big thing about the library.
Yeah.
All those designs and ideas and.
So this is one piece of the bigger picture. This is one piece of the bigger picture, addressing the other issues of the town hall, which include the security for the clerk.
Right.
And also
and other people who work in the offices.
Storage needs and, how this room is used and what our additional needs going forward. All of which are part of our capital planning.
So is there such a grant that because of the need for ADA, et cetera, that would help us have somebody who could look at it with eyes that we already have ideas. We already look at this, but somebody who, it's like the best thing you can do if you want to improve your house or your town or anything is go in and act like you've never been there before. Look at it as a stranger would. And I can't, I mean, I'm not here, I can't, because all I can see is major changes, and I'm way not confident for that. So Wayne, is there a grant possible for a design? I don't know.
Not that I'm aware of, but
For ADA, or where would we seek, where would we look?
If you want, you'd be more likely to find a grant for doing it.
For actually doing it than designing it. Yeah. You gotta leave me out of it.
Well, maybe the next step is to get an estimate.
yeah, it might be good to get an estimate for the door and an opener. Because if in fact the court could apply for money for that, I mean, that's sort of something to be carved out.
Right,
And that would be an asset whether or not we
definitely.
did anything else.
Well, I do have one other question. It's like the one when you lower the road instead of raising the bridge.
Mhm.
What if we did that parking lot fixed so that it was, the ramp came at the right height?
Well, you'd have to redo the ramp because it's already there.
Because
Because they made it
it's
wrong.
already too steep.
Exactly. I mean, there was some thought in my mind about, could you fill in on top and make it less steep? But the problem is that both the landing is also too steep at the top. It comes out at the wrong place.
Yeah. Yeah, so no matter what, that part has to be fixed
Yeah.
if we're using it.
I mean, you might be able to, and I talked to Michael about this, you could, have to take the sidewalk out that goes out the bottom and steps out to the end, because if you raise it up and be buried, it wouldn't matter, but the ramp would have to come out.
Right. And I don't, is Michael an architect or anything? 'Cause,
No, but he's in construction just like I was for a long time. And of course, that's
maybe we
like-
should solicit ideas from the town. Have a little contest.
Well, I mean, what we've got is already something of what Paul Hansen designed to. He had a different design for redoing it,
Right,
which did not find favor. But that's how we ended up with the stone,
Right.
the big stone, planters and stuff. But it didn't address the ramping,
yeah. But that didn't do anything about the accessibility.
So I'd like to, address both issues at the same
Yeah.
time.
I think we should get an estimate on this.
The whole thing is.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, we could probably get a quote. I don't know whether whether Jeff Rockwell, who has done some of the work. It was Jeff who did the,
I don't know who that is.
well, he did the repairs on the Cuba last year and repainting on the north side. It was he who replaced the main doors.
Oh,
He's a very, very competent carpenter. Does extraordinary work.
okay, that's
If
one.
these are for wheelchair accessible, what does that do with the people that use it for plugging in electric vehicles?
Oh, we have to move unless you wanted to make the handicap space charging station.
Yeah, we have to move the charging.
Yeah, I would, basically move across the parking lot. And maybe add more. That was part of what Jane Hall had suggested, is that we could get more charging stations. It's unfortunate they were put there, frankly, it was the obvious place to put the handicap spot. The other thing that needs to be dealt with is that bench. One of those benches is right under the drip line from the roof. And, we had that wall repainted last year. The paint has already failed on the building next to the bench because of the splashing. So I mean, there are ways around it. You could put a gutter on the building, you could put a diverter on the roof. You could also take the bench away because it
Yeah.
doesn't belong under the drip line of the roof.
Right, it's in the bad place.
It's a bad place,
Yeah,
which I think is what should happen.
yeah, I mean, that one's pretty easy.
And maybe sooner than later. And Amanda's here. Amanda, this is when I did it, that I wanted to run by you and the park group, was the possibility of taking these 3 benches that are out here and making them part of the park. An amenity in the park instead of here. And as part of a part of this project, it be included as a, you know, we'll move them and put them where you want them, kind of deal.
Yeah, I can't visualize which benches you're referring to off the top of my head, but I mean more places to sit in the playground wouldn't be hurtful, in my opinion. So yeah, we can coordinate what needs to happen to make that move.
These things are heavy duty, nobody's gonna walk away with them kind of things that are bolted down to concrete footers. And that's what you would do if you had them over there too. And all they need for maintenance is to be, you know, occasional light sanding and another coat of furniture oil applied, which they should have now, by the way, but we can maybe do that sooner than later,
Yeah,
if you're interested.
yeah, make them.
Yeah.
available.
Yeah, I am. I'm actually we're heading out of town tomorrow for about a week, but then when I get back, so then early July, if you want to connect, we can coordinate what needs to happen and make that
Okay.
move.
Right. In light of how late it is, perhaps, I think I like your idea, Pat, maybe just getting an estimate for what it's about to implement that project. Are we okay with getting that, an estimate for that, so we have some idea? Okay. Right. Consider process for appointing a town clerk. We okay moving on? Pat, you've done a first pass. We've already gotten Ted to take on it. Could you get at it? I could screen share it. I made a document out of it. You have access to that, Janice?
Are you asking me for access? Yeah, it's linked in the agenda.
Yes. Can you screen share it?
I thought you said you wanted to screen share it. Yes, I will screen share it right now. Hang on one second.
I can read it on my screen, but there you go. Okay.
You need it
So,
bigger?
It's okay for me. Can anybody read it? Pat can't see it. Can you make it a little bit
Okay, I
bigger?
have a hard copy.
She got her copy, yeah. Okay. So what Pat has suggested here, well, now you made it so big it doesn't fit on the page. Good. The 5-person committee. So the committee, this is essentially a search committee, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
What is it? Search committee.
Yeah. Would you know, solicit candidates, interview them, and then make recommendations to the town board, which makes the actual appointment. With a 5-person committee consisting of the town accountant, a staff member working at the town hall, the previous town clerk or deputy clerk, somebody that the county clerk or other clerk would recommend, and another town resident secretary chosen by the town board, with one town board member ex officio.
I've seen similar techniques used in other examples.
Yeah, I was wondering whether you had, whether you had asked how other.
I've been on two of these in the past. One was 50 years ago, a search committee for the president of Binghamton University. I served on that committee as a representative of the graduate student organization.
Mhm.
And again, they had people from various constituencies picking their own representatives. And about 20 years ago, I served on the search committee for the principal of Boynton Middle School. Again, the school board makes the recommendation.
Mhm.
The search committee consisted of parents, teachers, other principals, somebody who is not associated with the school at all. And they made the recommendation. Now, those were bigger positions. They had search committees in both those cases were like probably more like 15 people as opposed to 5.
Mhm.
And again, in all cases, both cases, the committee made the recommendation to the board. The school board was one case, the board of the university was the other case that it made the recommendation to.
I mean, a couple things struck me when I saw it. One, I wondered whether any other towns use such a mechanism where the clerk is appointed, whether they do anything like this. But the other one has to do with, this person, whoever it is going to have to work closely with the board. So it would seem to me that it's important that the board and the supervisor be, have a hand in the selection of the candidates to be considered for appointment, rather than have it be, a candidate emerge from a process of basically, as you should say, stakeholders. But the stakeholders are not I would say that there are stakeholders not represented here. The group with whom the clerk will be working most closely are town staff. So the staff is good, but also the supervisor will be the direct supervisor of that position, and the close working relationship with the board is, I think, paramount.
You can't know what the working relationship is until you're in it, so.
This is true. I mean, you can't know for sure, but witness where we are now.
Well, I mean, the board does get to vote.
Yeah.
ultimately on the recommendation, but I think the goal is to, Ed's comments notwithstanding, to try to minimize the influence or seeming influence of the board in choosing the position, so that it's truly not a political appointment. It's an appointment of merit.
And the major person of the reason for the committee is to get people on there who have some competence in the area, and they can ask good questions. They can get to references, and they can call references and ask for appropriate questions. Again, it's the qualities, the abilities that are being evaluated. And one of those abilities is value to get along with people, plural, anybody, not just 5 people who are on the board at one point in time.
Absolutely. No, I entirely agree with you on that point. And it was only with that, just sort of emphasizing, I suppose, the need to get along over. I mean, it sort of goes without saying that the person has to have some skills to bring to the job.
Well, that's the same for an elected person. It's the whole idea is that you just, whoever a person is, whether they're elected or appointed, you'd like to have them get along. The difference is if they're elected, you can't do anything about it. That's the difference.
Well, the people can, but
The people can in 2 years or whenever, yeah.
the problem is, well,
The people can in any way. It's
Yeah.
just complicated, but
right.
I think that maybe 5 is too small a group.
I was thinking of maybe another community member.
Well, you want an odd number. So I was thinking initially of 5 or 7. And there could be, 7 actually makes perfectly good sense to me as a bigger number. And it could be 2 community members. And there could be another source of some other technical support person who would be able to be qualified to evaluate abilities. And maybe more people from, maybe the county clerk could recommend more than one person. It could be
I
useful
don't
that
like the idea of having the county clerk for some reason.
the county clerk would be somebody who knows what the job is and could
Yeah,
ask
what the
questions
county
explicit to the
is,
job.
but-
It's a clerk, still a clerk. And it's fine if it makes sense to me actually to make, it's easier to do it through the county because it's a single person. The other option, and the county clerk is responsible, but the other option is have the county clerk recommend somebody, clerk from another town. And that would be again taken out of the hands of the town board. It should be somebody else deciding basically who it is. And it could be a clerk from another town and would be more appropriate, conceivably more appropriate, sometimes not.
Right, it's hard to know.
Um,
Well, I mean, you'd like somebody who has had some experience being a town clerk.
Yeah, I don't mind that, and I think that's probably a good idea. And that's, the thing is, for anybody who takes these jobs, it's also nice to be able to have some place to find out what the job is ahead of time. I mean,
Well, that's part of this when you do the advertising. When you advertise for a position, you have to have what it is, and you have to have backup when somebody calls and applies that gives more details about that. So that is part of this process, yes.
right. Well, I was still talking about the committee. I understand there's more to this.
You've been there.
But I've been in, we've been in search committees for the youth managers.
I imagine you had that kind of experience when you were at school. Too.
Oh, yes, I had a school, I had all of that, and I've been on the board for a 5-school child development center, which was a very, very large thing. Yeah, I have plenty of experience with that kind of thing.
Does this make sense to you?
Well, it's, I just barely got to look at it today. So
Yeah, right, me too.
I think it's a great place to start. There are lots of things. For one thing that we might want to have that it's just thought, but it would be nice to have a uniform set of questions that are available, which we should, if we were to reassess all of the appointment procedures, because it would be helpful if people had a chance to be on the same, at least have the same questions asked of them, to take away some of that idea that somebody's going to ask one person a question that's going to make it easy for them to apply because they like them, or all that kind of that's the kind of thing where people say the board is picking somebody they want. And no matter how we look at this, the voters could pick somebody that they want. I mean, it's a very complicated situation, and it doesn't mean that anybody who's already doing it or has done it in the past, anybody can apply for a job. And that's the value of having the job opening, so that people can apply and look and see. They don't have to worry about collecting petitions and doing all of that. They can apply for a job.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this, and we might also want to think about how this might relate to the fact we're going to have a planning search.
Have a
Search for a planner as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe this could become a model for all of those.
Okay.
When we last did it, we had a search committee for the planner.
Who was on it?
I'm trying to remember. Do you remember, David?
I only saw them by Zoom because we were being locked in.
Great.
They did a really good job though.
Yes.
Nice unbiased.
Yeah, once you've got someone in position, they can be, if you're looking for the successor, they can be part of the search committee.
Right.
Which I would certainly like to have be the case.
Yeah, yes.
But it could be.
Yeah, I think that I would like this, if we do any of this, I think we really need to do it to all of the appointment. We have to have a better way of appointing people than we do. We can't, it would be crazy to have a search committee for every single.
Planning board members and.
No, I was thinking of, like, if a search committee, every time there was somebody dropped off the CAC.
Exactly,
It would be
Overwhelming.
yeah.
This is much more appropriate for jobs,
Yes,
and
Right,
this
and
is
those
jobs, and this is a job.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah,
right, exactly.
that's,
Right.
yeah, it's appropriate for a job,
Clerk, planner, code officer.
yeah.
Maybe even maintenance staff. Something like that.
Mhm.
Jen, did you want to say something?
Yeah. I just wanted to bring up a couple of points about the clerk position, that, you know, it's not a role that's under the authority of the town board. And this is something that has previously come up with Sarah Schnabel when she was on the board, that the board really needed an assistant to help them and work with them. And I feel like what you're looking for is an assistant that will do things for you. So there's a difference between what the clerk does, which is its own authority. It serves as a separate check and balance on the municipal happenings. There's a humongous fiscal responsibility in collecting over $1 million, $2 million, $3 million of taxes every year. There's a huge fiscal responsibility with collecting the town fees and reconciling those accounts and making sure the money gets turned over to the supervisor. Then there's the aspect of records management, handling all of the administrative duties with the various officials, whether they're resigning, whether you need to fill a vacancy, all of those kinds of things. And then the point that you need someone who is collaborative and a team player doesn't mean that you need to get somebody who will always say yes to the board. It means you need somebody who is collaborative and collegial, and it goes both ways. So not only does the clerk have to be respectful and understanding and an active listener, but the board needs to be respectful of any person, whether they're elected or appointed, that comes into that role. And so this idea of somebody who gets along with people, with all people, that's not happening from the town board. There are certain members of the town board who do not get along with all people. And that's okay, because they're elected positions. But when we all come together to work for the town, then we all need to be respectful of what's going on, who's doing what, and who has the authority over another person when there is no such authority imbued in that position. So I just want to reiterate that when you have a clerk who is elected, that doesn't mean that the board can tell the clerk what to do, because that clerk has a lot of other elected responsibilities, statutory requirements, and that is why there is a distinction between the clerk as elected versus the clerk as an appointed administrative, beholden to the board. The clerk will do whatever the board says to get their board work done position.
Well, I mean, this will all be debated between now and November, but assuming that the board decides to pass the law, that will then go to referendum. But I would point out that all the responsibilities of an elected town clerk are also the responsibilities of appointed town clerks in those places where the clerks have become appointed instead of elected. And generally, those are places, the move from elected to appointed has happened as the responsibilities of the job have increased rather than for the opposite. So
yes, but the problem with having an appointed position is that when you get into these conflicts where I don't think anybody would fault me on the work that I do. Maybe you would fault me for the minutes because I don't keep up with the minutes, you're right. But then, the board as a whole collectively attacks everything I do with the minutes. So it
Not
makes
to
it a little
mention money, paying bills. We don't get those either.
to put minutes forward when people say, oh, you're missing a period here. Oh, why is this typo here? So, these are little personnel issues. But if you change this position and you make it this appointed position where you're actually trying to get outside people to hire somebody for you, then you run into these issues. What you just said, Joel, was that the clerk interacts most deeply with the board, but that is not true. The clerk interacts with the board with minutes,
This is
with filing. But this is important because it's related to your search committee process here, right? So if the clerk is working primarily with the board, then yes, by all means, it should be appointed. But the clerk is not there to serve the board. It's there to serve the public. So you're getting things a little bit confused and mismatched. And when you come out and attack somebody who's in a position, that makes it really challenging. So I just want you to think about those things as you're going through this process of trying to find an outline for a search committee for a position that would report to you, because that respect and communication and collaboration really needs to come from both sides.
I do want to note explicitly that the board appoints the town planner. And at no point have I ever seen the town board tell the town planner what to do. In fact, we depend on what the town board, the town planner can do for us. And David has done a wonderful job, by the way. But I think we do that. We already have experience with appointing staff paid salary positions that we do not take control over when they are the ones that are the experts.
I will say that David has worked very closely with me and at my direction. But there has never been a case where he wanted to do one thing and I wanted to do something else.
Because he works for the board, he doesn't have any authority, decision-making abilities. I don't have any decision-making.
That's enough.
Yeah, I think we're off the topic here. This is,
Yes.
I'd like us to,
We've got plenty of time to debate whether the position should be appointed or elected between now and November.
right,
And in fact, even next month, when it comes to a public hearing about whether we should even propose it, we
right,
can talk about it.
right.
It's not relevant to this
I
discussion.
simply
which
request that
if
Pat
it were
keep her
appointed,
opinion about me.
enough already.
She is continuously harassing me. Unfair.
I'm having the more people talk and the quicker the speeches, I'm having enough trouble understanding. I can't understand everything I'm hearing.
What I'm saying is this is off topic.
Right.
The topic is, if this were an appointed position, what would the process look like for finding the person for the job?
And a lot of things, and nothing, I think that it doesn't matter whether somebody's appointed or elected or anything, your responsibilities that come with the job, and that I don't want it, we're not here to debate whether or not Janice is doing her job or not. It's a separate issue, whether this would, if Janice, you were not in the position, we would still be looking at the possibility.
I beg to differ. You would absolutely would not be debating this. This is clearly about me. And when Pat makes derogatory comments about me, that is when I need to speak up and defend myself, because nobody else is doing it.
Yes, this topic has come up in the past before you were here. So the appointment versus election has been something that's debated. And the biggest objection has not been who is the clerk or who is the highway superintendent or anything. The biggest objection has been whether or not we're taking the choice away from the town people. And that's the one that is misunderstood, I think. And that between what we're talking now, all of the other things that are personality wise, I think if we could just remove them from this and consider that the issue of what the town understands why this board might want to do an appointment versus elected, and why in the past it's been tried, and why it is that there's a really strong, I don't know whether it's a self-rule thing, I don't know whether it's an independence thing, I don't know what it is that makes it seem that we're taking something away from the town, that it just, the town doesn't come. Go ahead, Steve.
I think that would be an argument for maybe having more townspeople on the committee.
Right.
And maybe even structuring it so that it's a majority of people on the committee. But I was gonna ask, thank you, Pat, for doing this to get us moving in that direction, but what's the next step?
Well, I mean, the reason we're looking at this at all was because Pat suggested it's important, and we agree to have some indication of how we would go about it if the board is approved, going to an appointed instead of elected. So, I mean, I guess I think it would be good to carry it to a point where we could say, we agree that the process, like whatever, would be the one we would follow if this were to happen. And I think probably needs a little bit more work. So the question is, where do we go from here? I mean, how would we modify this? Should we, create a committee, or
Well,
we just want to talk
did you
about
say the hearing is at the next meeting?
What's that?
What did you say is a public hearing?
Yeah, right. We scheduled a public hearing on the proposal for the July 19th meeting. And we did it.
No, it's
so
for the
that-
July 5th meeting, July 5th at 7,
July 6th, you mean?
July 5th, because the meeting was moved from the 4th, because that's the first Tuesday. So
Yeah.
the meeting was moved to July 6th. I'm sorry, 5th.
Well, yeah,
At
the
7
first meeting is
p.m.
July 5th, but isn't the public hearing on this scheduled for the 19th?
No, it was scheduled for the 5th.
Oh, really? Not what I remember.
Do you want me to move it to the 19th? My understanding was that it needed to be done ASAP, so you needed it at the 5th. That's what I have in the notes.
Yeah, the timing question was about the ballot for November.
Yes, and the 19th of the last that could possibly be done. And consequently, that is more or less as soon as possible. But he also wanted to have an opportunity for the public to know, to comment on it before it was voted on it.
The day after July
Right.
4th may not be the best time if you want to
Right.
optimize people attending.
My notes indicate that we scheduled it for the 19th, but in truth, I added them after the meeting, and
Yeah, no, I have suggestion to hold a public hearing. Need time enough to post notice that we will do it. Hold public hearing must occur by August. Decided to consider it and could have the public hearing at the first meeting in July. Several board meeting members are willing to do that. So resolution 145 was to schedule a public hearing on the proposed law to modify the elected town clerk position to board appointed on July 5th at 7 p.m.
well, we could change it.
I would change it. I
Yeah.
don't think doing it the day after the 4th of July is fair.
No, I agree.
I do too. Why don't we do?
So why don't we change it? And
You haven't advertised it yet, have you?
It's supposed to go in on Friday. I can change it.
Yeah, let's do it. I move we change the public hearing for the proposed local law to go from elected to appointed to the July 19th town board meeting.
second,
Ready? Janice?
Hunter,
Yes.
Weisberg,
yes.
Woodworth,
Yes,
Kenyon.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what you get when you don't take notes. All right, so coming back to the question. Next steps for this.
I would like to suggest that we can't have these final on by the 19th, but the idea of the search committee can be. It state that we would definitely have a search.
Well, we don't
committee.
have to have it, no, we don't have to finalize it.
Right,
But,
So
but
we could have
we want to
something-
get it, we want to get it well in advance of the November.
right, and we could have it available for before the published hearing, so that if we had even this rep act saying 5 to 7 members, 2 or 3 town members, whatever, if we made it a little, we added the possibility of having more people, then the people who would come to the town board, the town hearing,
Right.
have something.
Well, we could do that at the next meeting if we want to talk,
At
do it
the-
as a committee of the whole,
Yeah,
tweaking it.
that sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay,
I'd
we
like
could
to
do
be
that.
able to have, I would like it if this, an outline of a draft of this were available for the public to see before the hearing.
I think that's a good idea.
I do too. Okay, so this, we'll tweak it the next meeting.
And now we're at 8 o'clock. I really think we need to do the park thing.
We should do everything. though.
Yeah. So we have to,
How about I move, we do something another half an hour?
Second,
yes.
Janice?
Okay, Hunter, yeah, Hunter, sorry.
Yes.
Weisberg,
yes,
Woodworth,
Yes,
Daniel,
Yes. Authorize signing of agreement with Danby Community Park Association. That's one of the reasons that Amanda's here.
Right. I see.
and what about following the 501c3 rules?
Well, Amanda's here to answer the questions we might have beyond what I shared with you her email. Yeah. So if you would, hey there, Amanda.
Hi.
There you go. Yeah, that question.
Hello all.
What-
Would you ask me a question or you're just unmuting me?
The status of the Park Association with respect to the 501c3 new requirements.
Yes, so Joel mentioned my email, so I sent him some clarity where we are right now, which is not a whole lot further, but we are under contract. We've hired a lawyer. Basically, looking at what our options are for rectifying the language in the bylaws. The best way to move forward is to dissolve the current organization and reform a new organization where we can reestablish and rewrite bylaws in a way that allows us to make decisions, because at the current moment, the bylaws are a little unclear on quorum, and that poses a problem. So with respect to moving forward to clarify that situation, that's where we are. We are working with a lawyer. They had a couple other projects on their docket, but we are under contract with them. And we've identified that as the path forward. So now it's a matter of meeting with them and figuring out what steps are involved in dissolution. Of course, the park owns real estate, so it's a little bit more of an involved process than for a smaller organization that doesn't have, real estate assets. So, but that's what our path looks like. And like I said, I'm going out of town this week, and we're hoping this summer to meet with them and sort of get a better idea for timeline and what that looks like moving forward. We have filed our taxes and are compliant in those respects.
Yeah.
I see your hand, Ted. And I know you're involved in the park and hoping that that if you have something that would be useful, it can be quick. Sorry.
Thanks. It's actually a question, both so I understand what Pat is asking and perhaps to correct any misimpression that attendees at this meeting might be getting. What exactly is coming into compliance with 501c3 are you referring to here? 501, you're aware that 501c3 is a federal designation by the IRS, whereas the problem that precipitated this whole situation was a change to New York State corporation law, specifically nonprofits.
Flash a lot of people here.
Yeah, it's not in compliance with the New York State guidelines, correct?
Right, but you said 501c3, so everyone should be aware that 501c3 is a nonprofit status for the purposes of tax reporting, which is not the problem at hand. So that's all I want to say.
So the tax reporting can happen, it's the same thing for the community council, right? And
Yes,
so,
it is. Yes. The problem is simply with compliance. It's not even a matter of compliance. The law changed and it caught people. That's exactly what Guy Crow told everyone.
right. So the question, I think that then for the park, we need to do this so that I think you found out from Guy that as long as we have a contract, we can
Precisely,
work with.
yes.
Well, that was actually to Joel I was talking about.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Sorry.
the out of compliance does not preclude us contracting with the organization as long as we regard them as competent and capable of following through on an agreement to spend funds that we might allocate in a way that they agree to.
Well, and they can't do the boardwalk without the contract, because we can't give them the money that they got from a grant or something like that.
Well, no, that's a separate issue.
Something like that.
This contract is the contract for the town money.
Right, it's the mowing and all the other maintenance stuff.
Right,
which is
exactly.
Piling up,
Right,
right?
right.
So I think we should do this.
I do too.
I mean, I think that both the park and the community council and probably a billion other people who have fallen under that problem. I mean, it sounded like a really nice idea, and it was really nice whenever we wanted to announce at concerts and things, and you all are part of this, and it's welcoming and wonderful, but look what happens.
Yeah.
So that problem is, yeah.
Well, I mean, the bigger problem for me is not the fact that there was an out of compliance, but the out of compliance was resulted in the bylaws being not followed. You know, you can't do them the way they're written, nor can you amend them.
I know.
And
I know.
that's the problem that needs to be addressed. And it's
Right.
been out there now for a couple of years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I may interject, it is
No.
true that we cannot have an annual meeting, but within the structure of the bylaws that exist, it's my understanding that both organizations are actually complying with the bylaws. They simply can't move forward until the problem is fixed. The board remains the same, and nobody, every person on the board is legitimately on the board until they're replaced. So there's no lack of compliance here. There's a roadblock.
This is off topic, but the bylaws require vacancies on the board to be filled.
No,
It has not been.
it does not say, I believe the word is, had the boards have the right to fill them, may fill them, not shall. And under the circumstances, it's awful difficult to find people who are willing to stick their necks out. I think you should be thanking the people who have remained on the board for dealing with the problem.
Well, I'm glad it's being dealt with. I will say that.
Me too.
It's enough.
Yeah. All righty, so
All right, so, I move to, well, that you authorize me, that we authorize me to, sign the contract.
I'll second that.
Okay, ready? Janice,
Hunter,
Yes.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes,
Canyon.
yes. Okay, Amanda, you're all set.
All right, thank you.
We'll be back in touch over the benches.
Yes.
Yes, drainage district number 1.
Sorry.
There having been no objection, we can now finalize the process of creating this district. And there's a resolution to do that, which is on the agenda also.
Oh, the South Point.
Yeah.
I needed to catch up where you were.
And I move said resolution.
I'll second it. I'm sorry for all the years of people not knowing what could have been and should have been and didn't happen, and that this is the result of this. I think this is the best way forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it'd be good to get this resolved. Janice,
Hunter. Hunter,
Sorry, yes.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
yes,
Canyon.
yes. And fortuitously in a way, we finally have a resolution for the Danby Food Pantry. I proposed this a while back, and I didn't hear back, and then I contacted the chair of the church board, and I'm blanking her name now. And it turns out that they have a fiscal year that's July to July.
Oh, perfect. Perfect
So
timing.
this is perfect timing for them, because they would have it, they like to have it be in the next year's, timeframe. But the deal is, in order to avoid a lot of issues with us contracting with the church for them to do the food pantry, what we will do instead is we will donate the $5,000 to the food bank of the Southern Tier, where the funds will be earmarked for food purchases by the food pantry.
Yeah.
So it goes to the food pantry, but,
Right.
circuitously.
That we, guy looked over and that's everything's okay with that.
The guy did not look at all.
It probably would be about 15 pages longer.
Yeah,
wouldn't
no
it?
doubt, yeah. I'm pretty sure this is okay.
I shouldn't have said anything.
I don't have a look at everything.
Yeah, well, I think we should have been doing it all as we have been anyway, and it's been the objection is that I've heard only is that we don't monitor who the people are who are receiving it, and I don't think we should ever do that.
Right, I didn't hear any objections about, how
Not
the
from
money
us.
gets used, right? The problem we had was, well, it was more the church's problem.
No, I'm talking about the only problem to having a food bank at all. The person, the objection that you can't say, well, Pat can't come because she doesn't live in Danby.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. It's the same thing with the youth program. If a kid needs a youth program and they come to ours, then we should serve them.
Mhm.
But I'm for this. I think I'm glad that we have something from them and some.
And it's a particularly good time to be giving the money too, because the federal government has cut back.
Yeah.
On the allocations for the, what's it called, the SNAP.
Now,
So it will create more of a need for alternatives for those who are short. infusion at this juncture would be particularly helpful.
Yep.
Ready? Yeah. Yes?
Sorry, my screen went wonky. I didn't actually hear anybody move it or second it.
Well, you may be right.
It didn't happen, you're right. So
Yeah.
I could say I moved it because I said that, and then somebody else can second.
Yeah, and I'll second it.
Great. And now I'm ready. Hunter,
Yes.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes,
Kenyon.
Yes. Okay. Good news and bad news. David is leaving us. That's the bad news.
Yeah, that's the bad news.
Good news is, where he's going is gonna get a really good guy.
That's the great news.
Uh, And, and I asked him to be here so that he could interface with us on strategizing and how we go about getting his replacement.
Good idea.
Yes.
Good idea. Would you like to know?
Yeah, you need two hands.
Yeah, we all sit here watching, one-handedly trying to do that. Takes like,
So I have spoken with the county HR department about the process going forward, and they can list a position almost immediately. They just need the word from Laura to do so, assuming you don't want to change anything with the position, the title. And they would need to know the salary that you're asking. One of the things that I told Joel is that there's several planner positions open around the county right now. And I think it's fair to say that this would be one of the better ones or the best one. And I think you can be competitive in getting applicants, and that you wouldn't really want to wait until after, for example, Dryden has an application due on the 10th of next month. So if your process can start sooner rather than later, I think you'll have a better chance of grabbing people. The city of Ithaca also has open positions. They are listing positions from entry to mid-career levels.
And doesn't the county as well?
I think the county just filled
Did they?
a position, yeah. I don't know if they currently have one open. I don't know if Lansing just filled or is, so there's other planning positions opening and closing. And I think getting in with this position, both because it has a relatively high salary and because it has a high level of autonomy, I think you can attract a good candidate who is either wanting to move up from somewhere else or, looking for these opportunities. The other thing, I'm happy to help spread the word about that. The first step is to get the description up and listed through the civil service on the county's webpage, but then we can work on getting it spread around to, the Western New York Young Planners Facebook page and the New York Planning Federation and the American Planning Association's Upstate New York chapter and Congress for the New Urbanism, where you can get people who care about some of the smart growth things that you're looking at. There's a bunch of places to get it out to once it exists.
Is there anything wrong with the one we've been using now?
I don't think so.
Okay, then I suggest we use the same one and get it out immediately. What we need to do is decide on a deadline for getting applications in.
I haven't looked at it to see whether or not there was how much, well, we did one thing for the position, I think, and then another thing for the advertisement. Because the advertisement talked about our, rezoning and our, comprehensive plan and how these things related and what we were expecting. And tried to make it more attractive than but the position description itself might suffice the way it is.
Yeah, I think you could even advertise differently in different venues
Yeah.
for just like you would write a different resume for different jobs.
Yeah. In particular, I mean, I think we're at a juncture now where we could tout the fact that having rezoned,
Mhm.
we need to revisit the comprehensive plan. That's a major process.
Yeah,
And, you know, it's a good jumping in spot for somebody who's got some interesting experience.
I can get that up there tomorrow. We just need to kind of talk about of how long you want it posted for. Make a deadline, because I know, so first of all, David, congratulations. Boy, we're gonna do, but congratulations, and I know you're gonna do well. We can get that up there tomorrow. But do you want to give? You want to give 2 weeks time? 3 weeks time for applicants to apply?
Do you have an opinion about this being one who applies for such jobs?
my main opinion is that once you see it, you're gonna apply for it within a couple days or not. So,
Right, when
you
you
know,
see it.
yeah, some of the question is,
They're not
we
gonna
need enough
agree
time
with-
to make sure it gets everywhere.
Right,
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
especially other sources. So I would think 2 weeks would be reasonable.
Where does that put
That puts you on the 6th.
the 6th?
Is that enough?
Or a little bit later, maybe the 7th, because again, it's a holiday.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I think mostly just being around the 10th makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, there is some risk that then you're interviewing the same people Dryden's interviewing and,
Right.
Well, of course, you know, then it could be economical for them if they were, you know, coming to town and
Sure.
didn't
Yeah.
get to catch both of us, you know?
Yeah.
That's true.
And then we can see who's
The
a
other
better
one was
fit.
the 10th, that's the deadline.
Dryden is the 10th, yeah.
Yeah, I'd make it the 10th.
Well, I mean, I just 7th is because it's a Friday.
And we're not gonna do anything for the weekend, so allow people, if
Okay,
we're,
look
if we're
at
not
the-
gonna do anything much, let people have that other weekend, especially since people, when they go away for the holidays, it's often that week is taken off.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
That's a good point.
And
Although
we
we
want
give
good
it to-
candidates, we don't wanna just do it time-wise, just for our purpose, we wanna optimize people applying.
Yeah, we're practically in July already.
Yeah.
Very true. People on vacation, this is vacationing time.
Right,
There's people gone, maybe good people, you know.
right.
So
Okay,
allowing more
fine.
time, and if it's we're not behind, Jordan, that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, and that also gives you a chance, it's not a final decision, right? If you
Right.
get to the 10th and you don't have
Absolutely,
great applications, you can extend it.
yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
the city's been extending theirs forever. They're having a hard time finding people.
Really?
Um,
Well, I understand, Enfield just, Enfield? No, Ulysses, just
Ulysses. Yeah,
They had a hard time. They ended up piggybacking off of the county's hiring process, following up on the ones that they didn't hire,
okay.
that worked for them.
Mhm.
So we're in the same boat as far as trying to find somebody good.
Yeah, except,
It didn't work for the
Probably
county, it
paying
worked
more.
well for them. as it turned
yeah.
out.
The one thing I mean, I guess there's not a lot you can do about it now, but just something I learned in the process that I just went through is that, although I think your salary for this position is good, because of the way the benefits work, you pay so much that it's hidden. And that was actually something I came up against, of not actually realizing how good of a deal I had compared to, you know, other places where you pay more of your health insurance.
But we need to
Just a
emphasize that.
long-term thought, yeah,
We
you should
can find a
emphasize
way to
that.
post that.
Yeah,
We
right,
could find a way to post that so that that would be attractive.
right.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I wanted to change the proportions, but, because it would be reflected in the salary, but,
Yeah,
but it didn't work. We didn't go there. So, there are a couple considerations. One, do we want to apply, seek at the same salary level? And I
That's
think,
in the budget, I think we need to do that Yes,
Yeah,
we're already budgeted.
yeah,
You could also list a range. So for
Okay.
example, I think Dryden's range is 60 to 70 is what they listed for their position.
mhm.
Um,
As
Whereas,
opposed to just giving a number.
yeah, so then you have some flexibility depending on who you get. If you only get fairly entry level people, you can offer them the bottom and they can try to
Right.
negotiate with you.
Right.
Um,
The other consideration, I was just talking to Mark Whitmer just before the meeting. They are perhaps going to adopt zoning shortly.
You do what?
Adopt
Oh,
zoning.
right, exactly.
If they do,
If they're
they're kind of in need of a planner. They're thinking about going that way anyway. And so there was a brief discussion about whether or not it would make sense to collaborate on the planner.
Not with the amount of poor David
No.
has been doing.
I
longer
think
hours.
there's more than, I think what you're doing is a full-time job. So the question was whether or not if we could share a planner, whether we could share a planner in the assistant.
mhm.
Does that make, you think that make any sense?
The zoning is different in both towns.
Yeah.
That's just too much work, and we had it at one time, it was part-time.
Yes,
And the
yeah.
town chose to go full-time.
Yeah, I'm not
because
suggesting
it
it's not people, I'm just saying that, if it were.
Full-time in Danby.
shared- Yeah,
I don't know that you could share. I mean, having two shared positions seems even more complicated.
it does
And
seem
maybe-
complicated.
Maybe would make more, if you were really intent on going the shared route, to have a shared planner and two part-time assistants,
One for each
one
town.
for each.
Which one for each town?
It is a lot to maintain two entirely separate codes, but a lot of the process work is the same because it's
Mhm.
controlled by state law in terms
Yeah.
of prepping for meetings.
Yeah, I'm doing seeker and.
But you have done a whole lot of stuff.
There's a whole bunch of
Whole
new
lot of stuff
things
that you've
a new
included that
person- Yeah.
There's a lot
you've got
of-
a lot of these grants that you've gotten for the
Yeah.
town, which is really good for the town, especially people that don't have much money.
Yeah.
So I think we need a planner period, one planner for the town, full-time town.
Yeah, in terms of, it's a new set of skill set that you have to look for someone who can manage grants and someone who's gonna manage a stormwater district and.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did say to myself, I think not to anyone else, that if there was one thing I was gonna get done in this job, was that Danby would have a stormwater district. Just in time.
I think it'll.
After many, many years.
Stormwater District number one.
Yeah.
So I recommend that we advertise starting tomorrow, and the deadline be July 10th to get applications.
You'll say we should have a range.
That would be fine. What's
I,
60 to 75?
I would recommend, yeah, I think that makes sense. 60 to 75 or 60 to 72, something higher than 60 to 70.
60 to 72.
Yeah.
60 to 72, and how long do we want to give for the applications?
July 10th.
Okay,
Right. And then, okay, so that gets the ball rolling. We still need a committee to do, interviewing and making recommendations. So forth. You want to deal with that now, or we could do that July 5th? I
We
suppose.
have 1 minute left.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, we can call this good for
You won't
now.
even be here.
Get the ball rolling is good.
However, I mean, we did discuss tweaking the committee for appointing a clerk. So maybe in that process, it would be possible to also work on a committee
Yeah.
along the same lines. For
Yeah, right. And we could talk about it next time. Do we need an extra meeting?
Yeah, we didn't approve the
General
general
voucher.
fund vouchers. That's a hell of a lot of money. We haven't.
We don't want to adjourn them without doing.
We don't have them. We have to have another meeting. Yes, we have to have another meeting.
Yeah,
So
right. Let's deal with this first and then deal with that, even though we're gonna run over maybe. So I have a motion done by Pat, right?
yes,
There was an application deadline of July 10th and a salary range of 60 to 72,000.
we advertise right away.
Yep,
Second.
okay. Any further discussion? Okay, Janice,
Hunter,
Yes.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes,
Gagnon,
yes. So, I mean, I could call a meeting, but it'd be nice to have, we could do it now if we can agree on when we want to meet. Extra meeting to deal with the fact that we've got warrants that didn't get dealt with.
Right,
vouchers, and they need to be done sooner rather than later. So I
Right.
would say we need to do them by next week, Monday or Tuesday.
Maybe sooner.
Shit.
Janice, when do you think you can have the warrant done?
I could have them done. I mean, I could have them done tomorrow. It's not a problem. So whenever is convenient.
Okay,
Well, maybe, we could even split them so we could get the people paid as quickly as possible, and that gives us a chance to
We have to announce the meeting, and I don't want to have meetings so where we don't give appropriate announcement for when we're paying money.
we could meet Friday.
yeah.
That's still cutting a little closer,
I
giving letting
think it's
people know.
okay, I mean, there are people that are here, no, and it's just to approve the vouchers and the minutes that people will weigh in on anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal.
That's my opinion. I think the sooner we can get the vouchers done, the better.
How about 10 o'clock on Friday?
Yeah.
AM.
That's the 23rd, correct? June 23rd at 10 a.m.
Does that work?
I have no idea.
No,
What did she say?
I had no idea whether 10 o'clock on Friday would work.
Oh,
I'm not certain myself, but I mean, can we make that a tentative?
Well, we need to post it, so it shouldn't be tentative. Would evening be better?
I don't have my schedule here.
No.
and it,
Okay, what we could
That is
do is we
okay.
could make it tentative until you guys pick your schedule. And if that doesn't work, then we could.
we know when Leslie's gonna get back.
Pick another time.
I don't know how long she's.
I don't know when she's coming back. Does anybody else know?
That's why if we could just get the warrants done.
But, you know, she could also, well, yeah, again, she could attend by Zoom if she knew.
She can, if she can get on.
Yeah, if she can get on.
If you have a quorum in person. And you need a quorum in person.
Yeah, which would that probably won't be a problem. But we wanted to do minutes as well as warrants at that meeting. To drag it out some.
Well, that's why I was wondering when Leslie would be back, but.
I don't think we know the answer to that.
Hmm?
I don't think we know the answer.
Nope, I don't either,
No.
so.
Why don't we tentative schedule for the 23rd, and if that doesn't work, we could do the 26th, Monday.
Okay,
Same time, 10 a.m. or?
I don't know my schedule either, but I think I can do 10 a.m. Friday. And then-
Actually, I take it back. I can't do
That's right, you
10
don't like,
a.m. I can't do 10 a.m. on Friday.
okay. Could Cindy cover for you?
It's possible. I'd have to check in with her.
Cindy usually gets in a little.
Yeah, she
yeah,
knows, I know
Cindy
she
was
does.
11.
Yeah, the office opens at 11.
But realistically, if you wait till Monday, by the time, even if you did it on Friday, by the time we get them printed, get them signed, get them ready to go out the door, it's not going to make any difference whether you do it Friday or whether you do it Monday. Realistically.
Well, then maybe we should go to Monday.
Is there anybody that's gonna come yelling at us about not paying the lawn being mowed? On
No,
that?
let's hope not. Let's hope not. They should have gotten their first check by now anyway, so. No, we'll be,
I don't remember signing a check.
What was that?
Did I?
actually, you did. You signed 2 checks. One from
Okay.
the water district and one from the general fund.
No, yeah. Those the grass needs mowing again.
I'm sure.
So are we saying Monday at this point,
Monday, 10,
11?
11 o'clock.
Yeah. Might give me enough time to take care of 15 animals.
So that was a motion by whom?
I move that we
It was
meet
Steve.
Monday at 11 a.m.
And Joel, you'll be at the town hall for that, or will you be by Zoom?
We have to be in person in order for it to be.
So I'll have the checks all printed and ready for you to sign at that moment.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
If it's Monday at 11.
Who seconded?
I'll second the motion. Steve made it.
Yep, got it.
Are we ready to vote?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Hunter,
Yes.
Weisberg,
Yes.
Woodworth,
Yes,
Gagnon.
Yes. That completes the agenda and we can adjourn. Thank you for all who suffered through the whole meeting.
Stay well, everyone.
Yeah, see you on Monday.
Okay.